That one glorious word represents more than just the geography between the Sabine and the Rio Grande. It represents a unique idea and way of life. A life of rugged individualism, proud self-reliance, gritty toughness, and fierce independence. That is what made Texas, and that is what will save her again. Howdy, folks. Sam Houston here. I want to thank you for tuning into the Feed Bandit podcast. Feed Bandit is the Texas first outdoors brand built by rabid Texans, for rabid Texans, and all those who aim to be one someday. We unapologetically promote the ideals that shape our Texas pride and Texas first patriotism through our love of hunting, the outdoors, and the gear and apparel we create. Texas, above all else, preserve the tradition, protect the legacy. Check us out at feedbandit.com. And to repeat that great rallying cry from a former colleague of mine, liberty or death. Now, enough of my talking. Here are a couple of bandits that love Texas as much as I do. Enjoy.
Well, howdy, friend. Welcome back to the Feed Bandit podcast. Jimmy here, and on this one, I got a couple of interesting dove stories. Since we're still in dove hunting season, I thought I'd get these out there so you could take stock and maybe apply some tips to your time sitting out in the field. But first, I want to do a little Texas history. So for today's discussion on Texas history, I wanted to follow up on what the old Corn Bandit and I talked about in the last podcast, and that was the day, or that was the annexation of Texas to the United States. We talked about October 13th was the day that folks in Texas voted for annexation. So I wanted to talk a little more in depth about what that meant to the state, to the U.S. and whatnot, just a little more of the history behind how we got there. So I think a lot of y'all will find this of interest, especially now centered around kind of all the division that we have now in the country. We can see, at least originally, how the Republic of Texas became the state of Texas, part of the country. And then we can take from that, at least we know the context, and then from there we can talk about, okay, where do we go from here on future podcasts. But let me get into that. So annexation. The annexation of Texas to the United States became a topic of political and diplomatic discussions after the Louisiana Purchase in 1803 and became a matter of international concern between 1836 and 1845, when Texas was a republic. In September 1836, Texas voted overwhelmingly in favor of annexation. But when the Texas minister at Washington, D.C., proposed annexation to the Martin Van Buren administration in August of 1837, he was told that the proposition could not be entertained. Constitutional scruples and fear of war with Mexico were the reasons given for the rejection. But anti-slavery sentiment in the United States undoubtedly influenced Van Buren and continued to be the chief obstacle to annexation. Texas withdrew the annexation offer in 1838. President Mirabeau B. Lamar, 1838 to 1841, proposed annexation and did not reopen the question. Sam Houston, early in his second term, from 1841 to 1844, tried without success to awaken the interests of the United States. In 1843, the United States became alarmed over the policy of Great Britain towards Texas. The British were opposed to annexation and even contemplated the use of force to prevent it. They did not wish to add Texas to the British Empire, but they did want to preserve the westward expansion, they did want to prevent the westward expansion of the United States, to reap commercial advantages from Texas trade, and to tamper with the American tariff system and the institution of slavery. President John Tyler, concluding that Texas must not become a satellite of Great Britain, proposed annexation. After some sparring, Houston consented to the negotiation of a treaty of annexation, which was rejected by the United States Senate in June 1844. Annexation then became an issue in the presidential election of 1844. James K. Polk, who favored annexation, was elected. Tyler, feeling the need of haste if British designs were to be circumvented, suggested that annexation be accomplished by a joint resolution offering Texas statehood on certain conditions, the acceptance of which by Texas would complete the merger. The United States Congress passed the annexation resolution on February 28, 1845, and Andrew Jackson Donaldson proceeded to Texas to urge acceptance of the offer. The British still hoped to prevent annexation by having Texas decline the American offer. On British advice, the government of Mexico agreed to acknowledge the independence of Texas on condition that she not annex herself to any country. Public opinion in Texas, fanned by special agents from the United States, demanded acceptance of the American offer. President Anson Jones called the Texas Congress to meet on June 16, 1845, and a convention of elected delegates was assembled on July 4th. He placed before both bodies the choice of annexation or independence recognized by Mexico. Both Congress and the convention voted for annexation. A state constitution, drawn up by the convention, was ratified by popular vote in October 1845 and accepted by the United States Congress on December 29, 1845, the date of Texas's legal entry into the Union. The formal transfer of authority from the Republic to the state was not made until a ceremony held on February 19, 1846. President Anson Jones handed over the reins of state governance to Governor James Pinckney Henderson, having declared, quote, "The final act in this great drama is now performed. The Republic of Texas is no more," end quote. You know, reading that last quote, so sad. I mean, I get why at the time these great Texans thought that it was prudent and the best thing to do to join the United States as a state, you know, then further enjoying the defense provided by the United States, especially against Mexico, kind of getting that guarantee and joining more with whom they perceived as their countrymen. And it worked out for a long time, no doubt about it. It's just like we talked about in the last podcast, all good things must come to an end. All good things have their natural end. And I, for one, tend to think that we are past that natural end to where perhaps a de-annexation situation should be highly contemplated very soon. If anything, to protect, you know, the what we have left here in the Republic or in Texas. We've gotten to a point where that confederation that we joined back in 1845-46 has morphed into the largest empire that's ever existed, that milks as much as it possibly can from this great state and doesn't, in my opinion, return anything of value for that milking. I think it's becoming, as I mentioned before, on clear. It should be clear to everybody that the government in Washington and Mordor cares more about foreign governments than it does about its own states. I mean, it's proven by look at all the money being sent to Israel and Ukraine and the lack of help going to Florida and North Carolina, East Tennessee after these hurricanes. It's as simple as that. Proof is in the pudding. You know, God forbid something happens here. Luckily, Texas has the resources to take care of itself, and I would hope they would say, you know, thanks but no thanks, Mordor. Keep your, you know, get out of here. We'll take care of ourselves. But you never know. So I don't know. We're quickly getting to that spot. So there you have it. Little contextual history around annexation, seeing how, or quickly, briefly, how Texas, the Republic of Texas, became a state in the United States. And we'll just continue to talk about how Texas can become a republic again. Why I think that would actually create the most prosperous country to ever exist if that were to happen. But we'll get there. That's enough on that right now. And now let's move on to a little dove talk. So this article that I wanted to go over right here is about, the title says it all. It's about decoying early and late dove. So I think there's some good tips in here that will, if you're not implementing them already, maybe there's something to consider. So let's go through this, see what they have to say. A fun, productive way to increase birds in game bag compared to shell shot during hot early and late seasons dove hunts. This article is pulled out of the Texas Outdoors Journal from August of 2024. Someone mentioned early and late, and most outdoor enthusiasts would think the discussion was about summertime fishing, plus ways to avoid the heat. Early and late in this context is hunting smarter during Texas early September and October-November dove season, as well as the late second split open mid-December through parts of January, depending on the zone hunted. Mid-September 2022 found the author in Dilley on Clint Graff's South Texas G5 Ranch as a guest of Weatherby Firearms and H&G Outdoors, the firearm manufacturer's sales rep group. Just as an aside, I have been down and hunted outside Dilley, or outside Pearsall down there south of San Antonio at the G2 Ranch. And let me tell you, that is a beautiful place if you have not been down there. I mean, the lodge alone is almost worth the price of admission. But we went down there and hunted dove last year. It was fun. Also just amazing the amount of animals that they raise there, the deer they raise, the exotics they have. There's so much to do there. Highly recommend looking it up. Pretty neat place. To continue, I had not practiced what I preached due to summer commitments, so my shooting was abysmal. However, not all was lost. Well, kind of sounds like me, almost every year. It was a great time on beautiful South Texas hunting grounds, associating with a host of new friends, plus much was learned. Even after I got through thoroughly chewing myself out for not being properly prepared, the shortcomings were mentally cataloged for future reference. On the hunt, I fell in love with Weatherby's import from Turkey, a lightweight 20-gauge Orion over-under shotgun. Its 6 pounds total weight, 26-inch long barrel, and comfortably scaled-down receiver is a joy to carry for any hunter regardless of individual stature. Even for someone with my big, long-armed frame, appreciates its 14.5-inch length of pull. At weatherby.com, it explains the Orion comes equipped with ambidextrous tank safety and barrel selectors, so the shooter can choose which barrel choke combination to shoot depending on the bird presentation. Barrels are chrome lined to aid in long-lasting durability and make maintenance cleaning a breeze. The smaller frame was a joy to carry and would comfortably fit any person's hand. Following several days of field testing, I had to get one and did. Since then, it has become one of my go-to shotguns for dove and quail. As an aside, yeah, mine is a Yieldy's side-by-side 20 gauge. That's what I shoot dove with. I love how it's lightweight. It's been a great gun, durable, great investment in my opinion. And I believe, yeah, it's Turkish as well. So I guess they make pretty good stuff over there. Continuing, as we get older, we tend to compensate for the accumulation of years and consequently do things different. Basically, more efficiently, even smarter. 1 year later, I was again included in the September 2023 hunt and returning to the G5 dove fields. Graff directed us to a hot dove field with scattered native sunflowers and water resources from irrigation pivots. Our group dispersed along 2 long fence rows in preparation of inbound flights of palomas. Over the years of dove hunting, I remembered those hot early afternoon hours before birds really started flying and action picked up. Many times, like this one, there wasn't much brush or shade trees in the desired location, or that had not already been claimed by a hunter. The expectations of drops of sweat rolling down my cheeks and dripping off my nose was anticipated. The solution and potential relief were with me in the form of the undercover truck bed cover affixed over the pickup bed. Since we were able to drive into the field and pick out a spot along the fence, I pointed the nose of my Ford F-250 in a westerly direction. Raising the lid created instant shade that grew in length throughout the afternoon. An additional benefit was all of my gear was within easy reach. Shells, stool, camera, a cooler full of ice-cold bottled spring water, and sports drinks. To offer a corny, dated phrase, I had it made in the shade. One of the challenges a year earlier was my lack of prior field time to reconfirm the ability to accurately estimate distances of passing birds. This is a common problem and leads to a lot of shots taken at birds out of range. An excessive number of spent shotgun holes with few birds in the game bag makes for a frustrating day. That was the story of my life hunting this year so far, especially the white wings. On the second chance foray, it was time to hunt smarter and lure birds closer. Decoys have been used by waterfowl hunters forever. Even dove hunters have used a variety of wing motioned or clip-on fakes with mixed results. The solution was to combine the Mojo Voodoo Dove decoy with the Mojo Dove A-Flicker decoys dispersed around it. A call was made to John Hurlitz, El Jefe of Carroll's Gun Shop at Warden. He had a couple of Dove A-Flicker sets still in stock, so I placed the order and said I'd make the quick trip from Houston to pick them up. He offered an even better option, to bring them to me at the G5 ranch since he was going to be on the hunt as well. A good guy to the rescue. The Mojo Voodoo and A-Flicker setup is simple. From my stool positioned in the shade behind my truck, I paced off about 30-35 yards. There, the Mojo Voodoo decoy was placed as my primary reference for distance. The flickers come as a set of 4 that are programmed to intermittently spin on the hockey puck-sized base, then shut down. Randomly, a flicker would spin up, stop, and another would begin spinning, so there was plenty of eye-catching action for passing morning and white-winged dove. Circling the primary dove decoy about 7 yards away, the winged hockey puck quartet were placed. Surrounded by scattered clumps of native sunflowers, the dove decoy was located in shorter grass, offering a variety of very visible activity. In the shade at my truck, my camera was being readied when I was surprised how quickly birds were drawn to the set. The voodoo decoy pulled the higher-flying birds from distance towards the spread. Then the aerobatics began as dove wheeled and dropped to about 4 feet above the deck before many finally landing in the spread. The first few times I was torn between shots with my Pentax or a load of 7.5 shot from the Weatherby Orion. Several instances of a momentary pause waiting for dove to once again take flight rather than taking a skillet shot occurred. At the end of the afternoon shoot, I had bagged my limit of 15 birds while popping 25 shells. I'd say that's pretty damn impressive. Probably would take me at least 2 boxes, probably 3. That's about a 60% average. While much better than a year earlier, I was still a bit disappointed. I could have done better with more focused attention since the distance was defined and birds decoying so well. The second round of testing occurred during the second split of the dove season near Winters, Texas, south of Abilene. Tom Claycomb III, TOGA's hunting editor, joined me on a return to Ryan Gardner's developing 24 Outfitters hunting ranch. Dove, duck, sandhill crane, plus bass fishing is primarily offered. The Mojo duo had proven itself on resident birds. Now the test would be on migrating plump northern birds hunted over ground cover that had been hit hard by birds during the first split. Fields with wheat, hay grazer, plus a scattering of other forage would be tested to attract and hold birds during the second split that typically runs into mid-January. Exact dates depend on the zone hunted. The reserve set of decoys were called into active duty. Tom selected his shady spot created by a backdrop of mesquite trees, while out in front was a spread of whirling wing decoys. From a distance, I chuckled when the dove started dive bombing his spread, and his shotgun barrel began to warm. TC3 was like a guy tethered on a line. He'd drop a bird, hustle straight out to his spread, and retrieve a plump dove. On his return to the shady hideout, he was regularly startled by a fast flyer, zipping in and catching the slow-talking Texan off guard. That's when it's really fun. The funnest part was how excited and animated he got as he told the birds dropped or missed. Bill, you're right. Those crazy birds were just dive bombing those spinners, he said in a slightly higher pitch and certainly faster cadence. I could see birds working my way, and then from out of nowhere, 2 or 3 would blast in. It was crazy. It was the first day of late season dove hunting. The next morning, gardening took us to an adjacent field. There was plenty of open space amongst the stalks that remained, but still had enough forage to attract and keep the invading northern birds interested. The wing decoys would aid in attracting consistent action as flights were observed working in distant fields as far as the eye could see. With just a little patience, shooting was expected to be good, and was. By his own admission, Tom is a shooter. His discipline at only shooting at birds within range needs some work. Plus, I guess that would describe me as well. Plus, he thinks every time he pulls the trigger, a bird should bounce dead on the hard, dusty ground. He continues to work on nurturing his patience and restraint when the action is so fast and enticing. Yeah, that's one of the hardest things to do, because you get excited and you want to take a shot at that bird, but when they're flying 1,000,000 miles an hour or they're a mile in the air, it makes it a little difficult to hit them. Months later, when we would talk, just to needle him, I'd bring up the late season dove shooting over the Mojo combo. Tom becomes like a steam engine, huffing and puffing excitedly as he builds up his vocal head pressure, recalling past shots and anticipating those to come. The sets of decoys are not expensive, but be sure to carry a supply of AA batteries. Bring a couple boxes of 20 gauge, 7.5 shot for each hunt. Tom loads heavy with the same shot size and 12 gauge, plus bring several extra boxes of shell. If you think dove hunting is a fun way to get the new regulated hunting seasons off to a great start, then try what's been described. And for those that want to finish the year or start the new one off strong, don't overlook the late dove season. It is unpressured hunting at its best. I can't wait to return to our outfitter friends for the upcoming dove seasons, but to also hunt some public lands this way. The $48 annual hunting permit could become an even better bargain and is available wherever licenses are sold, or plus online at Texas Park and Wildlife website. Yeah, I've actually never, well, I can't say never, because I think I did maybe 15 years ago, but it's been a long time since I hunted late season dove. I think I might try it this year. Hopefully, knock on wood, if there's any luck in the world, I will have accumulated my allocation of deer meat by the late season, and have a little extra time to go out there and try to get some dove limits. That'd be a blast. I think I do have a Mojo dove decoy, and it's the battery powered where the wings rotate, so that's always good. But I've only put that out there by itself. I'm going to look into getting these little ones on the ground that they talk about. These little dove flickers. I get a couple of those. Maybe I'll ask for some of those for Christmas. That'd be a good little Christmas gift right there. So yeah, did you learn anything from that? Get any tips? Even parking your truck properly to give you a little shade. That's I always seem somehow it seems like I'm always facing the sun in the afternoon. Amazing how that works. Just we all go out there, and then people pick spots or whatever, and then it just so happens that it seems like that's what's going on. But I'm going to keep that in mind next time too. But yeah, some good stuff right there in that one. And I'm going to end the podcast on a little one I found Still a little dove related. However, this one's related more to your best friend, your fellow dove hunter, your fellow dove retriever. I don't know. Sorry if you hear that paper against the microphone there, but uh, this is about giving your dog a treat. So something to consider as well. So this one is from the great Lone Star Outdoor News. I thought it was kind of interesting, and I thought I'd share it with you guys. Curious how you end up, giving your dog a treat when you're out there. In addition to, of course, all the water they need. But anyway, this one is called "Unusual Dog Treats from the Field." Alito hunter David Devaney had a dove hunting tradition with his former dog Quinn. Each time Quinn retrieved a bird, Devaney would either toss the bird's head to his dog or let him take it. Although it was done as a reward for a good retrieve, he may have been onto something in the nutrition department. According to the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission, bird heads can be a good choice for a dog. Jerry Nguyen Wheatley wrote that things like dove or pheasant heads, freezer burned fish, deer liver, and duck feet can all be utilized for the pet. Some can be given fresh, but the food dehydrator works for many others. Letting the dehydrator run outside or in the garage might be the best option, though. As with any new food or treats, veterinarians recommend introducing them gradually to your dog. Guess you're running that outside or in the garage because it may not smell the best. With bird heads, a few things are recommended. First, don't offer headshot birds to avoid potential lead poisoning. And second, clip the beaks on larger birds, like pheasants, as they are hard and sharp. Quote, the fur and feathers are fully digestible and provide an essential source of manganese, as well as a natural means of colon cleansing, according to pet treat company Naked Beasts, which sells duck and quail heads and feet, duck and venison liver treats, and other natural treats. Nguyen Wheatley shared some other options to try at home, each prepared with a food dehydrator at 165 degrees for several hours. They included freezer-burned fish fillets, fish skin, deer flank jerky, deer liver chews, and duck feet. Oh, that's interesting. So, for the longest time, I've been the best part of a deer, in my opinion, is the heart. No question about it. If you haven't tried the heart yet, out of every deer, unless you obliterate it with a bullet or an arrow or whatever, always get the heart and cook it. There are ways to do it. I have a recipe or a method at feedbandit.com walking through how I cook heart. It's very easy. You just real quick heat up a skillet or an iron skillet up to medium. Medium heat's good for me. And then you slice them into about slice the heart into half-inch thick slices. Trim off all the hard fibers and whatnot. A little salt, a little pepper, 1.5 minutes on either side, and they're ready to go. Now that's a drastic reduction in what the actual method and recipe is. So you got to go to feedbandit.com and find that. I'll put a link to that recipe in the show notes, but it's so good. I mean, it's one of the best pieces. And from my experience, a lot of people disregard it. So you can't do that with the heart. Now, I've taken the liver as well. And man, I've tried to cook the liver so many times, so many different ways, and I just can't get it right. I don't know what it is. I must have a cooking mental block or something on the liver. But reading that article now, I think I'm going to keep taking the livers. For old Biscuit. You might have been able to hear him snoring throughout this podcast. He's sitting basically right behind me on the floor, snoring. He snores worse than I don't know if he snores worse than I did, but he is a horrible snorer. This dog, but I know he'll love it. I always let him eat my trimmings whenever I'm cleaning some meat off, cleaning some of the deer meat. Always let him eat the trimmings from that stuff, right or wrong. And it doesn't bother him, because remember, dogs are wild carnivores, so they eat it raw out in the wild. They're not eating Purina chow or whatever out in the wild. So anyway, I give him all that stuff. So I'm gonna start taking a lot more of the organs. I'm gonna try other things on the deer. But this is interesting about the dove. Try to do that too. Maybe bring home some heads for him going forward. So just another food for thought, something else to consider. Waste not, want not on any of the animals that we harvest. The natives had the right idea, using everything. So we need to get back to that same kind of mentality, I think. Well, as much as possible. But anyway, with that, I'm just going to leave you guys here. Hopefully you learned a little bit from some of these articles, and it's a little bit of Texas history. Hope you enjoyed it. Please come back for the next one. We'll keep, I both keep learning a little more about Texas and becoming better hunters every day, so long as we implement some of these tips and tricks and whatever else that we go over. All right. Well, for that, I hope you have a good one, and I will talk to you on the next one. Take care.
Well, I hope the bandits gave you an interesting episode that either entertained or educated you. Or better yet, both. Hell, I told them this podcasting thing looks harder to do than defeating Santa Anna. So if you would, please help them out by sharing it with all your like-minded friends to help the bandits get the word out. And don't forget to check us out at feedbandit.com and grab some gear and apparel to support the cause of Texas. Remember, Texas, above all else, preserve the tradition, protect the legacy. Finally, as I said some time ago on the eve of the great battle, and I vigorously repeat here again, be men, be free men, that your children may bless their father's name. Well, fellow bandit, until next time.